Strap in, folks, because this is going to be a wild ride. United Healthcare CEO assassinated. Was his justice served or evil in action? A new czar of AI and crypto. Is this a power move or a power grab? Trump has a robot dog and there's an AI Jesus. Plus, my exclusive trip to Mar-a-Lago, what really goes down behind closed doors with power brokers, and the age-old battle of the sexes. But this time, we are not holding back. Drew.
How you feeling, Tom?
I am a little under the weather, but right now I'm not coughing or sneezing, so we'll call it a win.
Hey, man. Well, you're doing better than the United Healthcare CEO.
Oof. Way too soon.
RIP to his family. I know he's a family man and they're actually having services today. But they have found his killer, allegedly.
Yes, suspect.
They have found his suspect. And it is Luigi Mangione, 26-year-old. He's a UPenn alum, former valedictorian. He got busted at a McDonald's. It doesn't.
Yeah. People are a little too weird about the whole busted at McDonald's thing. Now, I'll be scandalized if he was eating the bread. This scares me from a French Revolution energy perspective.
Yeah.
Shout out to the person that tweeted that out. I tried to re-find it. I can't. But that really stuck with me, that we are living with people that have the same energy as the people in the French Revolution that beheaded thousands of people. And I know that when I say that, there are going to be some people that cheer for that. Mm-hmm. Now, look, a lot of things have to come out. We don't know that this guy did it. We don't know that the things that are being attributed to him are really true. But I do think that they ring true from a cultural perspective. The interesting thing, though, is that you have somebody who almost certainly is on a path to upper middle class worst case scenario. So this is not the guy that's going to be struggling. But I was shocked to see how many people were cheering for this. That to me is super scary, because what I'm seeing here is ethics that are unmoored to anything. And when I really stop and think about one of the biggest problems that we face right now as a society, most people cannot articulate what their ethics are, and they're not grounded in anything. Mm-hmm. And so the whole Nietzschean idea of what happens when God dies is really fascinating, because when you have a God, you just say, God says that this is how you're supposed to live. And so you don't need anything more than that. And so people can anchor around that. Now, if you have my interpretation of religion, that religion is a codification of the best way to live that has survived over time. So people have terrible ideas. Those all fall by the wayside in the harsh reality of an evolutionary past. And the only things that survive are the things that actually work. And so religions tend to have this sort of tried and true thing that will get people at a minimum through the environment that they grew up in. It may not translate to every environment, but it'll certainly help them through the environment that they went through. Once that goes away, now what? Now what are you anchoring on? And you can begin to anchor around things like resentment, which is what I think we see in this cheering on of the literal assassination of somebody. Is crazy.
I think you kind of nailed it in the head. This guy went to a $40,000 a year private boarding school. He was a UPenn alum. So if we're just looking at, a rich guy got killed, technically Luigi was a rich guy, or in the rich guy ecosystem.
Right. Certainly the elites.
What do you say to the eat the rich people, the people that are celebrating this, clapping for this? It feels icky. Ben Shapiro did a reaction. He says, if this is okay, there's no difference in us gunning down bankers or police officers or other civil servants who did us wrong. I think it's a slippery slope. Like, yes, healthcare is messed up. Yes, the United CEO probably denied a lot of claims that should have been approved. But at the same time, that's not a ticket for death. And I don't want us to just be okay with this vigilante justice. I sound like I'm in a Batman comic book. But
yeah, anytime you talk about vigilante justice, you're going to feel like that. So here's the reality. So one, I recognize that I am in the class that people are not thrilled with. So an image of my house was used during the 2020 protests. I would call them riots. That's what it felt like at the time, but protests where it said burn the rich, and they put a photo of my house. So you're on my balcony overlooking, you can literally see pockets of LA on fire. Wow. That was certainly unnerving. Let's set that aside, right? So let's remove me from this, because I think when people think from emotion, that's not going to get you anywhere, myself included. So I don't want to anchor around, well, I don't like being the person that people are pointing fingers at. What I would rather say is, what is a universal language of morals, ethics that we should be anchoring around? Okay, so first of all, you need a North Star. So my North Star is human flourishing for the largest number of people. Okay, if you look at it and just say, okay, what is the setup that we think leads to the flourishing for the most people? What are going to be the KPIs that we use to judge that? And then how do we know whether we're moving towards that or not? Okay, so once you make that the conversation, then I do expect people to put their finger on and say, okay, hold on, we have a wealth disparity that is wildly problematic. Yes, for sure. So now, one, why is that bad? Now, the answer to that question, I think, is pretty fascinating. The reason that's bad is because objective wealth doesn't matter. Only subjective wealth matters. Mm-hmm. Now, why do I say that? I say that because it is a documented fact that people don't so much care about what their overall access to resources is. What they care about is their access to resources compared to their neighbors. When you look around at your neighbors and you see that they're thriving and you're doing poorly, it creates this sense of resentment in people. You can test this in monkeys. If you give a monkey a cucumber for the same job that you give another one a grape, because they much prefer grapes, the one getting the cucumber goes bananas. Mm-hmm. Now, he's perfectly fine. If he's getting a cucumber for the task and his neighbor's getting a cucumber for the task, he will go absolutely out of his mind crazy if you then suddenly start giving the neighbor the grape for doing the same thing. So that is just evolutionarily, whether you want it to be true or not, it just is true. It is baked into the hardwiring of the human animal to have this just fiery resentment for somebody getting something for the same thing that we're getting something less for. Mm. All right, so people value their own contributions. I'm working as hard as that guy, so why is that person getting something more than me? Okay, so you actually want to push the system to create a giant and thriving middle class. And whenever humanly possible, you want that middle class to believe that later in their life, they'll be doing better than they are today and that their kids will be doing even better than them. If you do that, there's something that clicks over in the human mind and they're all like, hey, I'm good. In fact, dear anybody who feels iced out by the system, if you're not following Wall Street Trapper, shame on you. Okay? He just breaks all this down. This is a guy who went to prison, the beginning of his life could not have been worse. And he realized, literally in prison, his cellmate is like, dude, the way that you're approaching this is so stupid. The game may be rigged, but the rules are knowable and you can join the rigged side of the game anytime you want to. He didn't say it exactly like that, but you get the idea. And that's what I was thinking this morning. I'm like, hold on. Yes, the system is stupid and nobody is more annoyed by the system than me, but it's rigged in a way that's knowable and anybody can play it.
You can still jump in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the very simple answer is if you have to own equities, you have to own something. Go own some of the stock market. Now, if you can own the stock market on a long enough timeline for the last 100 years, that has been the surest bet ever. Just place that bet, and I wish it weren't as complicated as it is, but you can make it as sort of blanket, simple index funds as you want. And as long as you can play over a long time horizon, you will be fine. Now, I can annihilate my own argument there and do routinely, but I want people to understand that the way that the game is rigged is knowable, that you can play it at any time, and that this goes back to some people, they're just not going to put the time and energy into it, or they don't have the intellectual horsepower to pull it off. And that's why I get so angry, is we have a system that says, if you can't understand this, fuck you. That's why, even though I have a shit ton of Bitcoin, when people say the life raft is Bitcoin, I'm like, fuck you, dude, that's so complicated. When people say, hey, just invest in the stock market, most people won't. So anyway, the way that the money is inflated, when they want to put money into the system or get money back out, they either, they basically create debt that they want people to buy. And then they will literally, they being the government stroke the Fed, will go in and buy the debt back. And this is how, that is wildly, wildly oversimplified, but that gives you an idea of, if you don't own assets, you're not in the game that they're playing. Yeah. And so you're just like off on this invisible place of earning an income. And unless you're taking a very substantive portion of the income that you earn and investing in equities, it's not the only thing. I'm rounding things to make this easy to understand. If you don't do that, then you end up a wage slave, and the other guy gets to take advantage of the fact that money gets pumped into fake money gets pumped into the system. You have to have a thing that you own that when they pump money into the system auto corrects the price of that thing. A house, stocks.
Yeah.
Okay, those are like the two easiest that are going to keep up with inflation. Technically, debt will, but especially on long-term horizons, it can get muddy. But that's why people will say, oh, you just need to own real estate. Oh, you just need to be in the stock market. The value of the stocks often isn't actually going up. It's just keeping up with inflation because people, I'm going to finish the sentence, people demand it, but this is where then it starts to get complicated and people just tune out. Okay, let's bring this back to the assassination. The government's run by the elites. The elites print money and manipulate the economic system in a knowable way that anybody can participate in, but most won't. And that just keeps creating this divide. And historically, the elites will run the economy aground. They will ruin it. 100% of the economies run by the elites all throughout human history, they all end up crashing on the rocks. Okay? But the time horizon is hard to know. The only way to reset the debt cycle is bloodshed. So, dude, I get it. This is a highly predictable response to seeing your neighbor do better than you for what you perceive to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Working hard, just to use one example. So I get why we end up here. But what people have to understand is the mentality is broken and deranged because it pits you against other humans and puts you in a kill or be killed mentality. And the one thing, if your North Star, like me, is human flourishing, the one thing you want to avoid is bloodshed. So that's why I'm both optimistic about this moment because the populace spoke and they were heard. They spoke with a, not singular voice, but with a resounding voice. Mm-hmm. They won. The problem is the system's not that easy to correct. And so while I'm very optimistic right now, partly because I just want to be, and partly because you can nudge the system. And I think that we will nudge it meaningfully over the next 4 years. That's my hope.
No, I agree. If I were to give like a too long don't read, what I'm hearing is avoid emotions, own something, get on the other side of the cash register, like try to get into the system in the way that might be rigged or unfair, but you can still play, you can still join, and you can at least protect your family and your assets that way.
Yes, and the one thing I will add is avoid resentment at all costs.
Amen.
Because it will ruin your life. Like the fact that this kid can be from wealth, I think it said he was a data engineer, so he's got a good job. He's obviously of a certain intellectual ability. But he was so angry that he shot a man in the back and ruined his own life, obviously ended that guy's life, ruined his family's life. Mm-hmm. They say that sarcasm is the attack of the weak. I forget the exact phrase. The protestations of the weak.
Sarcasm is the protestations of the weak?
Sarcasm is the protestations of the weak. It's the way the weak protest.
Mm-hmm.
When you assassinate somebody like that, that is somebody that, one, it's fruitless. That's not going to do anything. The system will gobble that up as rapidly as the ocean gobbles a pebble being dropped somewhere in the center. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's a new
it'll have a new cycle,
yeah,
and then they'll replace the CEO, and literally nothing is going to change. Mm-hmm. So it's somebody who thinks that they are powerless to influence the system, and so they rage against, one person. And that is not a life well spent. And if it really is, whoever did it, if they get caught, they will spend the rest of their life in prison. To no end.
To no end. Donald Trump recently appointed David Sachs as the AI and crypto czar. And the markets loved it because Bitcoin has been chilling at 100K for the last week and some change. So do you think with Sachs now manning the ship in AI and crypto, you're going to see a mass adoption, deregulation? What do you think is the future of AI and crypto?
Okay, so this is where things start to get really interesting. All right. I know that what I'm about to say is not going to be popular with a lot of people, but because I believe it to be true, I am going to say it. The reality is when you get to the level of business that David Sacks is at, you understand operations, you understand cause and effect, you understand how to solve novel problems. Now, what novel problem solving is not solving a problem you've never seen before. It's solving a problem no one has ever seen before. And so with AI and crypto specifically, we are going into very uncharted territories. The Biden administration bordered on sinister with the way that they were handling this. Now, I have a personal stake in this, so of course I'm going to have that sort of emotional response. But let's just look at the nitty-gritty of how this works. Regulation is telling people all the ways not to do something. Now, the more ways you tell somebody not to do something, the less things people are going to do. That's why Elon Musk can build a rocket faster than he can get the authorization to launch that rocket. Now, anybody that hears that should immediately go, okay, that's dumb in the extreme. The whatever, how many hundreds of millions or billions of dollars that they spent laying down the new internet cable, that obviously has gone nowhere. The high-speed rail in California,
That didn't go anywhere.
however ungodly amounts of money, doesn't go anywhere. And the reason that they don't go anywhere is because they run into their own regulations. Okay, once you understand the impact of regulations on the economy is, to oversimplify, is twofold. One, it protects people and things. So maybe it's protecting the environment, maybe it's keeping somebody from getting sick, whatever. So you go, oh man, this is an unmitigated good. Like we just need to put a few rules in place just to corral this and get people pointed in the right direction. But the government, like any tumor, and I obviously choose that very intentionally, any tumor, its job is to get resources to come to it, to get bigger, to grab the finances, to grab the intellectual horsepower and get all of it into the government to make the government bigger. It's just what organisms do. And so all of a sudden, regulations that were meant to make things better begin to hold it down. And so the analogy that people often use is you can trap a giant with a bunch of little threads. You just need a whole lot of little threads. So any one thread, the giant could break, but when you've got a million threads, all of a sudden it becomes impossible. If you look at our tax code, it is positively ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. So regulations become like that, where it becomes impossible to follow. And then if you get bodies like the SEC, which was handling crypto, regulating by basically by suing people, then nobody knows what they can and can't do. And so there's just this massive cooling effect. So the hope is that you get somebody like David Sacks who really understands business, who understands novel problem solving, who understands that regulation have the two-prong effect, which the first one is you protect people. But then the second part is it holds giants back. And so if you begin to free up the giant, and the giant being the US economy, now all of a sudden you have fewer things stopping it and it can start growing. Now, people have heard me talk endlessly about the debt and all the things we were talking about earlier. The debt forces you to money print. Money printing creates wealth inequality. We talked the whole thing about that in the beginning. Yeah. So now, by deregulating, the goal would be that you find the regulations that were pointless, that weren't protecting people or things meaningfully. But by removing them, you allow for innovation. And if we can get innovation in these two incredibly important areas, crypto and AI, and many novel problems will have to be solved, now all of a sudden we can once again, as a nation, start generating more taxable revenue because we're innovating, we're doing new things that the world wants, capital pours into those things, that capital gets taxed, and now all of a sudden the differential between your expenditures in the government and the amount of tax revenue you're able to bring in, you start bringing in more tax revenue. Okay, so everybody wins if we grow. But when you have a populace that believes that the entrepreneurs, the evil capitalists, deserve to be assassinated in the streets, now all of a sudden, one of the levers that you have to increase human flourishing, growth of the economy, becomes viewed by many as evil. So my hope is that David Sacks reduces these regulations, the economy grows, and people will get back to feeling like not only is my life going to be better, my kids' lives are going to be better. Once we're in that orientation, we win.
I see it play out with AI because I know AI innovations are ripping across a bunch of different industries. That's our quote unquote ticket to growth. How do you see crypto growing and playing in this ecosystem, especially with Bitcoin hitting an all-time high that now doesn't make it seem like a meme coin? It's no longer just this digital thing. You have to take it seriously now. How do you see the future of crypto evolving and growing?
Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin and then crypto, because not technically, they are wildly different.
Copy.
Okay, so Bitcoin is crypto, but not all crypto has the positive benefits that Bitcoin has. Not even that, not all of them are trying to be. So understand what Bitcoin is trying to be, and then understand crypto as a technology. I think that's very important to differentiate those two. All right, Bitcoin, which leverages cryptocurrency, is trying to be a store of wealth. Okay, why? Because of all the things that I was saying before. The government can print money, which means they can steal your buying power. So somebody, some number of year 2012, I forget the exact year that it launched, roughly around there. And what they said was, I want a currency that cannot be inflated. Cool. So they invent Bitcoin. Now, if people believe in it, which at this point, obviously that ship has sailed, people believe in it, it's still highly volatile and people should act accordingly. But people believe in it as a store of wealth. So someone like me and countless of other millions of people like me go, ooh, that's better. I don't want to have to constantly be gambling in the stock market. I want to be able to make money, park it essentially in something that's value is either going to go up or stay static from a purchasing power perspective forever. Right? I don't want it to go down in purchasing power. So you can benchmark it against gold, say. Yeah. Okay, because everything else may just be inflation adjusted. So, all right, I'm going to benchmark it against another store of wealth like gold, and it should either stay static or go up. Since launch, it has gone up against literally everything. And that is what Bitcoin is about. And I believe governments have a moral obligation to allow their constituents to save in something that can't be inflated. So I believe they have a moral obligation to allow Bitcoin to exist. Okay. Now cryptocurrency. And so I guess to finish, where do I think it goes from here? I think it goes up for quite some time. Now, how much does it go up? I don't know. I'm personally, in my own life, it's not financial advice.
Disclaimer.
In my own life, I'm assuming that it's going to go up substantively from here. So keep your eyes peeled on that. The reason I think that it's going to go up is people are going to store their wealth in a pretty finite number of things. Things like gold, the stock market, debt. I have quite a bit of money in US debt. Bitcoin. Okay. It's real estate, if I didn't already say that, art, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So now Bitcoin becomes one of those stores of wealth. Now, what percentage of all the other things will it drink up? If it even took in 10%, it's something like worth $1 million or $2 million per Bitcoin. Jeez. So could it do that? I think it could. And I actually think that those numbers are low. I think 2 million was something like 7%, but it's of a gigantic number. So will it ever make up 7% of all things that people store their wealth in? Maybe not. But anyway, I think that it goes up from here. I think that the average person is now becoming aware of, oh, that's another place that I can put my money. And like you said, as it crosses these big milestones and more people talk about it, and it just shows up on the ticker of like, this is where your stocks are, this is where Bitcoin is. It just becomes, kids will grow up now today in a world where Bitcoin exists and nobody is, other than Peter Schiff, who we should probably talk about. He's been saying some crazy shit on Twitter about Bitcoin, which, man, does that feel like emotion getting in the way of judgment. I respect Peter tremendously, but on Bitcoin, I think he's off his rocker quite a long way. But yeah, so I think that number goes up. Okay, Bitcoin. Crypto is a very big conversation because there are a lot of innovations that are going to happen on crypto. I will give you my take on why crypto is so important to me from an innovation standpoint. So I looked at Web3 when it came out and I was like, oh my God, this brings the properties of physics into the digital world. Now, I would love...
break that down.
Yeah, I would love to just be able to say that and have people go, oh my God. Okay, so humans, whether we should or not, humans care deeply about scarcity. Cool. If I'm right with the following assumption, that's going to matter a lot. And my following assumption is that people will live more and more of their lives in a virtual world until essentially we become virtual beings and we upload our consciousness. Now, does that play out over 100 years, 1,000 years? I don't know. But it plays out as far as I can tell. The reason I think the Fermi paradox exists, which is, hey, if this universe is full of intelligent life. Why don't we hear from any of them? I think the honest answer is because we all collapse into virtual worlds. There's no reason to try to solve the biological problem and travel the cosmos if we can truly become a virtual being that explores virtual worlds. Now, there's some downsides to that, but anyway, just if that's true, then we're going to be spending more and more of our lives inside of a virtual world. And as we do so, we are going to want some of the properties of physics, such as where is something? Not just what is it, where is it? Who owns it? So ownership. Scarcity. It has to be a limited quantity if it's going to be owned. And now when you have that, now all of a sudden, a lot of the mechanisms of the physical world, including things like, here's a fun one. Hey, you showed up today at the mall and we're going to give you a free item because you're here. Okay, cool. So I need location and I need an object that I can actually give you that has a finite quantity that you can take, and it matters that you have it. Okay, I can't do that if I don't know who you are, where you are, and who this digital item belongs to. And so as a business owner, one problem that I would run into all the time is I would want to do things to reward my customer base. But if I made something that was digital, now all of a sudden it is meaningless because it's free and you can replicate it a gazillion times. And so it matters not. And when people say, oh, NFTs are dumb because I can just take a screenshot of it, now it's the same. That is the dumbest argument in the world, and it makes me want to punch people in the throat. That's like saying if I give you a picture of a car that you have the car. It's like that. That is somebody who doesn't understand that an NFT is made of code. So yes, the art layer of the NFT, which to me is pretty meaningless, the art layer of the NFT, anybody can have. But the underlying code that allows me to go, oh, in the video game you have, or don't call it a video game, in this virtual world, you now have access to this thing. I know who you are. You have a reputation that can follow you. I can have NPCs in the game react to you differently. I can give you things that other people don't have. Oh, and by the way, all of those things have a permanence that you can take into other virtual worlds. So it doesn't have to be just in mine. So in a video game like Fortnite, what does all that matter? Because, well, the game recognizes all my stuff and it doesn't need to be on Web3. But if you want to go somewhere else, another virtual world inside of another game, whatever, then that does have to be true. And also, if I want to blur the lines between the game world and the physical world, then I need something that can go with you, the physical person. But to do that, that thing has to be physicalized in some way. Has to be, let's say, on your phone. Okay, but the replication crisis, how do I deal with that? I deal with that by making sure that it has scarcity, which I have to do on the blockchain. And so that becomes a knock-on effect. Now, to your point, the TLDR of all of that is that you're bringing the properties of physical items to the virtual world. That's all anybody needs to remember. If you need a talking point to tell your parents why this matters, it's the blockchain, so cryptocurrency, or crypto, I should say, not cryptocurrency per se, but crypto allows you to bring properties, some properties of the physical world into the digital world. Ownership, scarcity, properties, so what the thing does. All of that relies on the blockchain. So I'll give people one really powerful example. Everything that you're going to see 5 years from now will be fake. Every pixel will be faked. No one's going to go to the trouble to film anything. You're just going to be like, okay, it's me, but I'm at a desk in front of a camera and I'm talking about these topics. Boom, just output it. 5 years, maybe less. And so now you need that to be stamped with a watermark from the blockchain that any player will recognize and say, yes, this actually was created by Tom.
So it's more so like the infrastructure, but where does that come as an industry though? Because I understand the tracking of it, but I guess once it's tracked, it could then be monetized and
think of it this way.
Yeah.
Crypto is the internet. It's just like that. It's a technological infrastructure upon which many things will be built. So we're building a video game called Project Kaizen, and it's on Web3 rails. But you don't have to know that. Like, why? Nobody needs to know anything about internet protocols, TCP/IP, HTTPS. Like, you don't need to know about that to navigate. I go to YouTube. I go to Instagram, whatever. That's how people actually interact with the internet. It will be the same with Web3, crypto. Nobody is going to know the underlying protocols. They don't have to know anything about it. All they have to know is what it allows them to do. So in my video game, it will allow you, if you want to buy a cool skin then you own it. I don't own it. So you bought it. You can do what you want with it. You can keep it, use it in game. You can sell it, whatever. So that's one of the really basic ways. But you're going to see a whole bunch of innovation happening around. You already are, but it's just going to explode.
Immediately with that skin example, I thought of like how StockX did to sneakers and how you can buy sneakers in the store and then you can resell them online.
Yep.
I can definitely see a limited edition resold skin kind of third party kind of jumping up.
It's going to get crazy. And again, kids will just grow up with it. It'll be
normal
standard. Thing. Yep. Like all my Roblox stuff are mine. Like I own this stuff. I can do whatever I want with it. Yeah.
We're going to talk about this StockX for Web3 idea again. We're gonna
you ready?
Pitch. Let me get my pitch together.
Hey, did you see that Fortnite now does tennis shoes in game?
Really?
Oh, yes. And they are not cheap, man. You can buy they're like $15 per pair of shoes, but you can swap them out on your characters. Nice. So, dude, first of all, can I just say we launched the ability to do that in Project Kaizen 2.5 years ago.
So they're following. You guys are they're shocking.
But yeah, like that's going to be a real thing. Like your digital identity, I think is going to matter to people so much that you really will get super into that stuff. And people will be able to create it and they'll be able to make a living making things that people want in game.
Nice.
When I say game, I know a lot of people turn off. If they think about it as virtual worlds, I think that elevates it to a level that I think people will understand a little bit better.
Yeah. I guess the almost comparison, this might be like a bad example, but like your profile picture across different social media sites, like
and being able to verify that really is me.
Yeah.
So right now, the way that we used to be able to say that, oh, if you can see it with your eyes, then you knew it was real. So a photo gave you a lot of confidence that somebody just telling you a story wouldn't give you. Then Photoshop came. We began to lose faith in that. But it was like, well, I saw a video of it. You can't fake that. And then people started being able to like airbrush people. I saw this is probably, 10 years ago now. There was somebody who was pregnant on a TV show and they showed me the before and after. And they literally could just digitally tuck their chin, suck in their belly. I was like, what?
Wow.
Now people are like, yeah, obviously, dude, that's super simple. And now literally every pixel will be fake. So if you don't have the blockchain, you are screwed.
Man, technology is coming. Technology is upon us. And that's a perfect.
Yes, technology is upon us. That is better said.
AI has been shown out recently this week in the news. Everything from Trump's robot police dog. And it's, to be fair, it doesn't have, guns or anything like that on it. I think
you sound disappointed. You want to see if that had an M16 on it, I'd be like, yo, we need to I don't want David Sachs. I don't want anybody that's letting machine guns roam around parks. It is interesting. The Chinese do have gun mounted dogs. So I know we are going to have them as well.
It's a matter of time. So between that side and then out in Switzerland, we had a whole AI Jesus where a software developer built a character based on the Bible using ChatGPT 4.0. So,
dude,
you already told me on the technical side with the blockchain and crypto, the future of crypto, but now we're physically seeing these high stakes innovations kind of proliferating society already. Do you think the adoption is going to get faster? Do you think this is happening right on time? Like, is it just beginning? Like, what's
wave? I think people are going to be more and more shocked by how good AI is already. I think they will be absolutely have their brains melted by how deeply people are going to integrate AI into their lives. So this weekend, my wife and I went on our yearly romantic Christmas sojourn to New York City. And I introduced her properly to ChatGPT because she was asking me something. I'm like, why don't you have that conversation with Chat? She's like, what do you mean? And I was like, hold on. You don't know that you can go give ChatGPT a bunch of information about you and say, okay, I want you to remember all this stuff. And now when I ask you questions, like hold that context. She was like, no, I had no idea. I said, okay, I'm going to freak you out. Tell ChatGPT your name and ask it if it knows who you are. She was like, hi, I'm Lisa Bilyeu. Do you know who I am? And of course, because she has a public persona, it was like, oh, here are all the things that I know about you. And she looks at me and she goes, I feel so seen. And I was like, yes. And so she said like, okay, please remember that's me. And when I ask you questions, whatever. And so she started asking it all these questions. And she was like, my husband is Tom Bilyeu. Do you know who he is? Yes. Boom, boom, boom. She was like, okay, I'm at dinner with him now. And I want to ask him, whatever romantic questions or something. I forget the exact prompt. But please keep in mind who we are. Dude, it was crazy. So because it knows just enough about us, and everybody will be able to train it. You don't have to have a public profile. You just have to give it the information that you want it to have about you. Mm-hmm. And when I say there is a reason that humans have what are called mirror neurons, and when we look at somebody and they reflect things back to us in our own behavior, our posture, the way that we're standing, our speech cadence, all of it, when we mirror that back to people, they feel way more comfortable. Now, AI will mirror things back to you in the most subtle ways that are going to, one, most people won't even realize it's happening. They will just like ChatGPT or whatever, Claude, whoever, way more than they like their friends. AI Jesus is going to be dope. AI Jesus will have infinite patience. It will know everything in the Bible. You can tell it things like if you wanted to specifically like over-index on certain elements, it will over-index on those certain elements. You will literally have a personal Jesus. For real, for real. Even as I'm saying that, I'm like, yo, this is going to be wild.
I feel like that's not the point though. And I know we have different...
What do you mean that's not the point?
I think we have different fundamental views about religion because I do believe that there is a certain... I was surprised that AI cracked the church. I'm going to be honest with you. Like the church still wears robes. They still stand up, sit down 3 times a day. Like it was very traditional. So for AI to skip over the doctor's office and land in church, I'm just like, okay, this is happening fast. Oh. And then now it's breaking. And then a church in Switzerland is getting hundreds of requests for this to like be global. Like it's crazy that like there's certain areas that I thought was going to get eaten up immediately. And like religion, like
there's
what?
only one area. And it's the area between your ears.
So let's just come for our friends.
Everything that involves how you feel about something is going to get overrun by AI. The only thing that will survive is when people say, I choose this thing because it is entirely human made. It's worse in every way. And let me explain. Let me give you church. Right now, I'm wearing an Oura ring. This Oura ring can detect my heart rate variability. I don't know if it can do blood pressure, but there certainly are devices that can do blood pressure. It can do my resting heart rate, all blood oxygenation. Nope. I'm sick. Leave me alone. I don't know how to say it. The level of oxygen in your blood. Good Lord. I'm going to have a stroke. So I want you to imagine that AI Jesus is getting all that data. And so AI Jesus is getting you to stand, to kneel, to pray for the exact amount of time that it's working, that you're staying focused. And the second you lose focus, AI Jesus is back. AI Jesus knows, oh, you just thought a negative thought. And so now you're going somewhere dark and AI Jesus is there to help you back up. AI Jesus will make you feel better than anybody has ever made you feel ever in your life because it's reading all that data that you're kicking off, dude. It can detect like micro movements in your posture, like the thing you're doing right now. AI Jesus is like, okay, the last 472 times that Drew did that move, it meant this, and it had this impact on his blood pressure. Dude, how you sleep that night, it'll be able to take the gestalt of everything that has ever happened, every pattern in your life, and feed it into AI Jesus in that moment to blink the way that it needs to blink, to move, to change its cadence, to say the exact words. Dude, people do not understand what it means to give birth to AI. Like they really don't. And every now and then, I remind myself that Elon wasn't wrong when he said AI is a demon summoning circle. And we are the person that's like, I'll be able to control it. Dude, hold on. Let me say one more thing. Social media fucked up 12-year-olds. What's AI gonna do? Social media ain't got nothing on AI, bro. So come on. AI is coming for your kids, everybody. All right. Now, I am optimistic. I want to be very clear.
I'm mortified right now.
This shit will not happen by accident. This is why you have to be really, really thoughtful, both on the innovation side. You don't want to have a knee-jerk emotional reaction. Human flourishing. Keep that. Okay? Keep that as like the central point.
Yes.
Now, if you're blind to the dark side of the tool, you'll get eaten alive. But it is by far the most profound thing that has happened for sure since the printing press. The printing press may be the only thing that can compete with it. But I think on a long enough timeline, yeah, there's no way. AI will absolutely dwarf what the printing press did to the human experience.
And this might be my naivete, because I thought AI was, the internet, and look at how the internet did it, and it sparked all these companies, and it was Internet 2.0. But you just said it's coming for everything between my ears. So Correct. It's like, if everybody is now, I'm gonna call it brainwash, you might call it something else, by these AI legions, like, how does that not lead us into Matrix style, like, human, like, slavery? Like, I feel like that's the only way.
So I think the right way to move through life is to say that there is some percentage chance that this goes well and some percentage chance that we become Matrix style slaves. Now, what's the percentage? I don't know. But here is what I would invite everybody to remember. Some people listening to this right now are going to be tempted to get a silenced weapon that is underpowered by the gas cartridges that they have, so they have to manually reload between each shot, and shoot people that are working in AI, or go Ted Kaczynski and Unabomb everybody that's in AI. It's already over. It's already over. AI is everywhere. It's already done. And there is no putting the genie back in the bottle. Yeah. That's not an option on the table. And so the only way to put the AI genie back in the bottle is to destroy humanity itself, because humanity has a core application running on the firmware layer that says build more technology because it's a promise of a better future. Mm-hmm. There is no way to stop it. There is no way to stop it at the level of the human mind. And once you know that, then it's like, cool, how do we do this well? How do we make sure that, like my wife was saying, that one of the greatest things about Central Park or New York is Central Park, because they have this gigantic city with this huge park right in the middle of it. I mean, it's insane how much real estate. Did you know that Central Park is bigger than Monaco?
Sheesh.
That's a country. I had no idea.
That's crazy.
Crazy. Also crazy how small Monaco is. But anyway, crazy that they never got rid of it. So we should make sure that there are areas of our lives that are completely untouched by technology, completely untouched. This is what people mean when they say step on grass, get outside, hug somebody you love, right? There is a part of us that will forever hunger for that. But it really is a better tomorrow. And let me now flip it and explain why, even though I can joke and say the AI is coming for your kids, and it really is, and be very careful, it will usher in an age of abundance. And it will take us to a post-capitalist society in the next, if we don't run into a compute wall, which some of the stuff I'm learning about in terms of quantum computing, Google just made a big announcement there. And then there's also other light-based computational styles. We probably won't run into a compute problem. If we don't run into a compute problem, the age of abundance is less than 50 years away, probably less than 25. So on the other side of that, you have energy is effectively free, that any material thing that you want, you can have. Everybody has access to the same level of healthcare, right? Mm. Everybody has access to food, to any material good, anything you want. And that really feels real for the first time ever in my life. Like when I think about artificial intelligence inevitably driving the cost of energy effectively to zero, all they have to do is improve solar panels. So that's not exactly a massive challenge. There is enough energy kicking off the sun that it is only lack of human ability that energy isn't already free. So it's here, we just don't want to capture it. So it will usher in an age of abundance that will so radically transform humanity that we truly can't see beyond it. It is the technological singularity. Wow. But I think that's why we ought to pursue it, even though we don't have a choice.
I am flabbergasted. I don't even have cheeky transition line, nothing. Just I'm scared. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. I get that response. Can you articulate your biggest fear in a single sentence?
My biggest fear in a single sentence is that low education, even voters,
Yep.
has put us in a political pickle. So I can only imagine what low education AI wielders may do with that computational energy and computer.
So you're worried about giving nuclear weapons to everyone?
If YouTube led to the incel, what is AI going to lead to?
It's a great question.
Yeah. Because I thought about it industry based, but when you said it's coming for the actual human optimization standpoint, then I'm like, I have some dark thoughts, but I have that filter. Then I'm like, yeah, okay, that's stupid. But not everybody has that filter. Okay, that's stupid. And then with AI saying, hey, you could just do this, and hey, you could just do this, and hey, you could just do this, and then before you know, you have a car bomb. Like, I just don't want that. Like,
oh, that and far weirder will happen. Here's the thing. History does not care about any transitional generation. Now, the long arc of history bends towards justice. The long arc of history bends towards things getting better. Matt Ridley's The Rational Optimist. You cannot look back at however many tens of thousands of years of progress and say tomorrow isn't going to be better. But you also can't look at Genghis Khan or Vlad the Impaler, if anybody wants to know the true story of Dracula. Actually, that wasn't Vlad, I don't think. I forget the guy's real name. Anyway, Romanian. And dude, he made I forget how many mile-long road of people impaled so that they would die slowly, so that the incoming army could hear them dying. Like that is a level of like evil. So all those people dying on a pike were not thinking, you know what, but on a long enough timeline, this is all going to be okay. So are we the transitional generation that's got a greased pike sticking through us? It might be. It might be. So yeah, I don't ever want to soothe anyone by saying eventually it will be okay. It is a fact. As fact-based as the future can be, I have no reason to believe that we won't get somewhere good, but it's going to be weird.
Copy and received. All right, tell me something good. You went away to this last weekend. You were out in Florida.
Can I talk about Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, so as you know, but the community may not know, I am absolutely horrific at networking. It is a weird Achilles heel. My entire center of gravity is to be alone with my wife, and everything outside of that, I have to like really push myself to do. Not in a bad way. Like it's always, when I do it, I always come back and say, I need to do more of this. But my just center of gravity is always just my wife, to be with her. And I just don't find myself compelled. So anyway, I go there and Trump's there. So I didn't know he was going to be there. I don't know that anybody did. Anyway, he's there, and you can just feel like there's this energy of, okay, there's us sort of plebes down here watching them on stage. And then there's them putting on the event. And I was like, this is political power. This is where Dunbar's number becomes very important.
What's that? What's a Dunbar's
number? So Dunbar's number says you can only know intimately about 150 people. And so tribes of old tended to splinter when they hit about 150 people. That's the number of names you can remember, sort of biographical things. Yeah. And so beyond that, it becomes strangers. And so, of course, you're going to end up doing things with the people that you know and that you've built up trust. And I am politically homeless. So I'm not right, I'm not left. And so I don't have a team. And that certainly suits my personality, but it does not make getting things done that require networking very easy. Going there, I was like, this is what it feels like to be on a team. Like everybody had like a shared set of values. They were all talking in values like the whole time. It was so surreal. They never felt like they had to couch anything. So everybody's just like, yo, this is what I think. This is what I feel. This is how we want to run the country. There was all this language of like, we're going to do this. It was just really, really interesting. And then the the sense of like, Trump has the it factor, where not only were all eyes on him, he was the most interesting thing by a country mile to look at while he was there. And so he has the instincts of a comedian. And so he's up on stage, impromptu, just talking. He's very funny. He ends up doing that dance that he's like become famous for. The crowd goes absolutely bananas. And I was like, he knows exactly what he's doing. So I had this sense of, okay, political power is about a small group. Being in the small group, you feel like you're on a team. I could feel that sense of like, oh, I get how people, God, am I going to throw, okay, I don't know these two at all. So maybe I'm misreading the situation 100%. And they were not there. I want to be very clear. It was just when I was there, I was like, oh, this is how this happens. I do not know Cenk Uygur or Anna Kasparian at all. But as I see them do the rounds, I'm like, yo, like they're really trying to position themselves as right friendly. I don't know what words to use, but clearly they did not love the loss. They felt a certain alienation from their own side and are now making overtures to the right, the winning side, the side that's going to get the attention, all of that. I do not want to impute negative motives at all. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just the human pull to feel like I know whose team I'm on, because I could feel it in being there. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. And all of a sudden, dude, so first of all, I dress by the right standards. I dress like a freak. So I had my Japanese pants with like straps everywhere. I was in a suit, but I had a baseball hat on backwards. It was just like, did not fit in visually at all. And then because I don't have kids, everyone assumed I had kids. Like every conversation is about kids. Like that's just like a whole, if you're on the right, the odds that you have kids border on 100%, that family first, all that, which, hey, I've got no beef. I think family, fuck yeah, man. Like that should be the default answer. But all of it was utterly fascinating. It was a glimpse into how power works. It was a glimpse into, I mean, look, there were hundreds of people there, but it was a glimpse into that sense of Dunbar's number that I could feel, okay, this is how you really get something done. You need to get a finite collective of people that can laser focus their attention, that can help each other, that do have shared values, that make you feel like you're a part of something. It was really, really, really interesting. And it'll be fascinating to see how this channel fares in a world where you're going to be richly rewarded for picking a side, because it's just not my personality. It's not, I don't even have to like try not to pick a side. It's just not my personality. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to see.
Do you think, I've heard that conversation before, that Trump has this charisma to him. He's everyman, even though he's the billionaire and all this other stuff.
He does not strike me as an everyman. He strikes me as unguarded. And that feels awesome.
So like approachable.
Yes.
Okay.
He doesn't feel elite. He doesn't use fancy language. Why do we hairless apes find it entertaining to see him dance? I don't know, but he gets it. And so it was like being at a rock concert. And when he started dancing, everyone starts screaming and like filming. It was hilarious. And so all of it felt like somebody who understands what they're doing. And so look, I get why especially political thinkers want to take him down, and you can paint a narrative about him. All of that foolishness landed the left where they are now. If you instead assessed him as he actually is, because everybody will tell you, because I can feel my thinking on Trump changing. Before the election, I was like, look, I'm not a Trump fan. And even now I find myself wanting to say that. You can't take Trump in totality. There's too many ugly parts. However, I would like to point out the things that he does freakishly well. He knows how people perceive him, and he gives them not what they want. He knows how to orchestrate their emotional response. That is the right way to think about him. Now, as a writer, as a game developer, I can't help but think my whole job is to get the audience to feel what I want them to feel when I want them to feel it. And he is a master at that. A master.
All those years of reality TV coming back to help out.
Yeah, but it's
like,
the thing that got him
aspect?
on reality TV is that he knew how to do this. And this is why, though, he can go into antagonistic interviews and do well, because he actually understands the issues better than I think people give him credit for. What they're responding to is he's very crass, and that he speaks like really extemporaneously. He does the weave thing, which is like actually pretty annoying, but whatever, he does it. And so he gives you plenty of things to latch onto and be like, oh God. And you just make fun of him for that. But the reality is he's down in the weeds. Like, he actually understands a lot of this stuff way better than people give him credit for.
Copy. Man. So was there a policy discussion? Was there something kind of larger that affected
There was a policy discussion, but not from him.
Okay.
So he was not officially a part of the event that I was at, which was Make Education Great Again. He was at Mar-a-Lago. It was a right-leaning event. And so he made an appearance, I think, as like a hug to the people that ran the event, which is PragerU.
We have a video breaking down the differences between men and women.
Let's do it.
The difference between men and women. Men need appreciation, and women need understanding. Men need respect, and women need love. Men need trust, and women need attention. Men need encouragement, and women need reassurance. Men need loyalty, and women need devotion. Men need purpose, and women need creation. Men need admiration, and women need validation.
Do I agree? I agree aggressively.
Aggressively?
Aggressively.
I think there's nuance to it.
You mean by that what exactly? That not all of that is accurate.
I think that it's not 100% men need these things, and if you give those men those things, it's done. But there is a little bit of 85-15 in the sense that, yes, a man wants respect more than he wants love, but he still needs love. Like, I don't think that necessarily negates it if you're just respectful and not loving, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very fair. However, I think, and you will be able to attest to this off camera, I force the team here to speak in binaries. Something is awesome or it's fucking trash. And the reason I do that is people will bamboozle you in the nuance. And I understand how easy it is to make me sound crazy because I will often speak in aggressive binaries. But the reality is that's why I find life so much easier to navigate than a lot of people, is I will connect dots with a very aggressive, sort of roughly true most of the time. But there are going to be nuances that make something untrue. And that's where I think people get themselves in trouble, is they spend so much time in the nuance of what isn't quite accurate that they spiral, and they're never able to create a path by which they can march forward, which will always be imperfect. It was utterly fascinating to watch the world go crazy saying that there are no differences between men and women, because this is something I went through very early in my marriage. When I mapped, remember, my whole thing is I'm trying to build a predictive engine. I do this, I get this result. In the beginning of my relationship with my wife, when I thought of her as me, she didn't make any fucking sense. And when I thought of her as a woman first, and that women followed a different set of influences, maybe the right way to think about it, then I was like, oh, I can start to map how she actually sees the world. And this gets a lot easier. Where I think people go wrong is a lot of the words that we use to attribute to men have so seeped into culture, and we've so told women to be like men because men are more valuable, that we hear the words attributed to men and we think, oh, those are the good words. And then the women have the bad words. And it becomes, did you see the movie Something's Gotta Give?
Yes.
Okay. No, wait. There's two movies I always get confused. Something's Gotta Give, and yes. And what's the other one? Nancy Meyers again. Oh God. Which one? Something's Gotta Give. Is that the one where he's Martin Udall?
That's the one where I just remember they're like outside.
They're outside.
No.
There are many movies where people are outside.
He's like,
Drew.
yeah,
Something's Got to Give is not the one. What's the other
okay,
one? So Something's Got to Give.
For the record,
phenomenal.
the cover, it was outside. That's what I was talking about.
That is hilarious, Drew. There are so many movies where the cover's outside. Oh God.
Another Jack Nicholson? Or?
Yes. Yeah, the one where he plays the writer. He is Helen Hunt.
As good as it gets?
As Good as It Gets. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So in As Good as It Gets, he gets asked, how do you write female characters so well? And he says, I think of a man and I take away all reason and accountability. Now, funny, but that's how the sort of modern interpretation of like men have all the good qualities and women are like unhinged men. Mm-hmm. And that is the absolute worst possible way to set yourself up. First of all, it has no predictive validity. You will drive yourself crazy trying to view a woman like that. Yeah. And you'd be like, why does this crazy bitch always have killer answers? And the reason she has killer answers is because she sees the world from a totally different and very useful angle. I'll be very curious to see if the following statement plays out over time. But the more I teach entrepreneurs, and dude, there's something happening in culture now where you see a lot of couples running companies together. And dude, I have yet to see one where it isn't man, big vision, woman is the integrator. I don't know what the fuck, what? Like I never would have expected that. I would have expected women to be more sort of in the ethereal ideas, not in like the really grounded systems oriented thinking. I have yet to see the opposite. It's always guy, big vision, and the woman is the integrator. That is just shocking to me. Now, of course, there are going to be times that isn't true. And that could just be a string of anecdotes. But whoa, very interesting. Anyway, men and women, when they think of themselves as clones of each other, you're going to be deranged. But this list is pretty good. Appreciation versus understanding. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, respect versus love. Like, do you disagree with any of these? Or do you just trying to get me to accept that it's a blend of roughly 85-15?
To your point of the nuance, I was definitely living in the nuance. It's sitting comfortably in the gray area. If you have to aggressively ask me yes or no, is this list true? I would lean yes. Because the things reading it kind of, men do need encouragement. Men versus reassurance. Like, I don't want you to tell me everything's gonna be okay. I just know when it's not okay, tell me that I got it, and then I'll go do it and I'll make it okay. So there is those certain nuances from my personal life that I can kind of reference and pull up. But with you and your 23 years of marriage?
Of marriage, 22 and a half.
22 and a half. I gave you a half a year.
That's very kind.
How I understand the premise of like, don't think of my wife like me without a penis, but like, how do I approach it practically? How do I make sure I love her versus respect her? How do I make sure I adore her versus trust? You know, how do we apply these nuances and apply these differences every day? Okay,
so one, to your point, if you don't love and respect her, you're going to have trouble. Okay, so now having said that these are all wonderful things that all of us benefit from, the important part is not the verses in the I can give you this thing or this thing, and I need to only give you that thing. It is to understand that the difference between appreciation and understanding is going to be the difference between getting along with your wife and not. Understanding the difference between respect and love is going to be the difference between understanding and not. And so this is where I want people to look through an evolutionary lens. Okay, so it just is true that men are the answer to the evolutionary timescale question, what do women want from men? Let me repeat that. Men, the way that we are, is the answer to the question over a very long time scale. What do women want men to be? This is the answer. Okay. Women are the sexual gatekeepers. Women decide who reproduce and who do not. Once you understand that, then it's like, well, ladies, you got what you asked for. And so here it is. But we're living in an era where there isn't as much danger. And so now we can have luxury beliefs. And so now you see a celebration of the effeminization of men. I think also the pill plays a huge role in that. If you put a woman on the pill, she suddenly finds a less masculine man more attractive. You take her off the pill, she goes back to preferring a more masculine man. Hoo-wee. Put us in a non-dangerous time, put women on the pill, you're going to get some weird shit. And that's what we're seeing. Okay, so from an evolutionary perspective, men having more upper body strength, men being better at spatial relations, men being more disposable. That one's always tricky, but I really think that one elucidates a lot. Once you take in the whole like bag of things that men are versus women, then it's like, oh, now I get why these are going to be different. So take one that I think is really the most interesting one on here is creation and purpose. Now, again, I think women need purpose. But one thing I've talked to my wife a lot about, you've chosen not to have children. You've given up the act of creating in the most fundamental sense. You better have an answer for that. Now, once you understand, for women, obviously meaning and purpose from having kids all day long. Mm-hmm. But the act of like, I created that thing. I carried it in my belly. I made that. When women lose that as a part of their cultural identity, you have a real fucking problem. And so now in what way are they going to get to be creative if they're not having a kid, right? Lisa has to answer that question, but I know that's on the list. Also, if I'm using purpose to overcome the fact that I did not create a child, okay, that probably going to be a lot easier for me because being a mother, like you see, I even told my wife straight up, hey, I'm willing to have kids, but just know I'm going to be off working, building, doing this thing over here, generating my meaning and purpose through the creation of a business. And if you're willing to be the one that stays home, does late nights, all of that, because this is when we were broke and I couldn't afford a night nurse, I'm here for it. But like, that is the bifurcation that interests me. And obviously these were dialogues, boys and girls. This was not me handing stone tablets to my wife. I've now been married for 22 and a half years because I tell her what to do and she shuts up and does it. That is literally the antithesis of my wife. But understanding that that was going to be a lot easier for me. And so she had to come to her own conclusions about what she wanted. So understanding those, hugely important. Admiration versus validation. Another, like, dude, I want to go do a hard thing and have my wife be like, yo, that's fucking sick. I want other men to look at me and be like, damn, I want to be like that. I don't want people coming up to me when I fail and being like, man, you're all good. You're okay. We love you anyway. That does nothing for me. Yeah. And the girl, you're fine the way that you are. That is like 100%. That's why female culture spits that out in droves. Mm-hmm. So when you understand the operating system that's running in your significant other, now it's like, oh, I get why, even though like the greatest skit of all time is the woman comes with a nail in her forehead saying to her husband, I really have all this pressure in my forehead. And he was like, well, why don't we take the nail out? And she's like, oh, you always just want to solve the problem. I don't even want to talk about solutions. Like once you get that that is not the wiring that they have, then this gets a lot easier to navigate. You can be like, okay, cool. I see. Validation is super important. So I'm not going to say if you remove the nail, it's going to make your life better. I'm going to say, damn, if I had that going on in my life, I would feel exactly the same. Mm-hmm. They feel seen. They feel understood, going back to one at the top. To make them feel loved to the core of their being, not to tell them, to make them feel. To where you could put them in an fMRI, show them a photo of you, and you'd see that resonate in their body. Mm-hmm. That is when you understand that and you can give them that. Now you're in a good position. And vice versa for women. If women don't understand, hey, like, dude, one of the most fascinating things that happened with Will Smith and Jada was Will was like, this big house that I've built for you. And she's like, for me? You didn't do that for me. You did that for you. And he's like, hold the fucking phone. What are you talking about? I did this for you. And so my wife made me watch it. And she was like, that's exactly how I feel about all your ambition. And I was like, bitch, you better chill. And I was like, you need to hear me when I say that I have to do this for, God, this is going to be so complicated. I'm going to get lit up in the comments. Dear people in the comments, hear me when I say, I'm going to do this for someone. I am going to do this. And I am going to do this for someone. Would you like it to be you or not? Now, you can rail against that. And you can say, what a fool. Men are the answer to the question of what do women want? Women want a man that will go and fight a saber-toothed tiger to make sure that she and her children eat. A man that will be willing to lay his life down to make sure that her women, or that her kids and she eat, that they are protected. That when the neighboring village comes to kill all the men and take the women and rape them, that the man will fight to the fucking death for that. So my ambition is baked into the 50% of me that I can't change. Now, of course, I could water that down and I can do things in the part of me that's malleable to lessen that, but I don't want to. So I am going to pursue doing grand things, being the best of all time, being the greatest to ever do it. Now, I can do that for you, or I can do it for somebody else. But if you don't understand that Will built that fucking house for Jada, then you end up where they're at.
Yeah.
There are centrifugal forces at work in the male mind, in the female mind. Mm-hmm. If you fight against them, it will tear you the fuck apart. If, on the other hand, you go, I'm not even co-signing that it ought to be this way. I'm just saying it is this way. Mm-hmm. And now that I know it is this way, 50% unchangeable, 50% changeable, I'm going to deal with this situation as it is, not the way that I wish it were. And there's an incredible book called The Female Brain, which was enlightening. The second most important book that people can read wasn't about the difference in sexes intentionally, but oh my God, A Billion Wicked Thoughts.
I remember you talking about that one.
Now, that one's not an audiobook you listen to around other people, because boy, oh boy, does it get graphic. Very important.
Man, all right, that's all I got.
There it is, everybody. All right, if you have not already, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace. If you like this conversation, check out this episode to learn more. Biden goes full China. Mark Andreessen drops a bombshell on Rogan. Mr. Beast sits down with the Beast, Cristiano Ronaldo. Bernie says Elon is right.
There was a recent poll on Twitter that went viral for the most attractive male hobbies.
If you play clarinet...